Imagine a world still new, a place where humanity is learning to walk on earth just beyond the gates of paradise. In this world of innocence and untamed wilderness, two brothers, Cain and Abel, are born to the first humans, Adam and Eve. Each takes on a path as distinct as their personalities. One tills the earth, while the other tends to the flocks. But from their differences comes a rivalry so intense that it brings about the first murder in human history, marking the land with blood and the soul of Cain with a curse. What drives a person to turn on his own blood? What fate awaits a man cast out by God himself, left to wander forever with a mark that both protects and condemns? The story of Cain is more than a tale of jealousy. It's a haunting journey through guilt, punishment, and the unending search for redemption. Some say Cain still wanders among us today, a restless soul, while others believe he met a mysterious end. But what really happened to him, and what does his story mean for us now? Join us as we unravel this ancient mystery, exploring the curse of the eternal wanderer, the legends of his fate, and the questions that linger across the centuries about justice, forgiveness, and the marks we all carry. This is the story of Cain, a tale of tragedy and mystery that will leave you wondering about the darkness within us all. The story of Cain and Abel begins in the earliest days of human existence, in the world that lay just beyond the gates of Eden. Adam and Eve, the first humans, were the parents of both sons, and they lived a life filled with the duality of divine creation and the fall from innocence. They remembered Eden, a paradise they could no longer return to, and in the vastness of the untamed earth, they raised their two sons, Cain and Abel. These boys were the first children to be born outside of Eden, carrying within them both the promise of humanity's future and the weight of its first transgression. As the elder son, Cain bore a unique responsibility in the family. His life was shaped by the labor of his hands, for he was a tiller of the ground, a cultivator of the earth's bounty. Day after day, Cain would break the soil, plant seeds, and nurture the crops that grew to sustain his family. There was a rhythm in his work, a sense of purpose, as if the very ground responded to his efforts. Abel, the younger son, chose a different path, one that led him to become a shepherd. While Cain worked with the soil, Abel tended to the creatures of the earth, guiding the flocks across the fields, ensuring they found shelter and food. Abel's work was gentler, less about control and more about care. He led the sheep to green pastures and quiet waters, guarding them with a watchful eye and a compassionate heart. While Cain's labor was hard and constant, Abel's was a calling to protect and nurture, embodying a quiet, humble spirit. In time, both brothers sought to honor God through offerings, each presenting the fruits of their labor. Cain gathered the crops he had grown from the ground, the produce that represented his hard work and dedication. Abel, meanwhile, selected the firstborn of his flock, a choice lamb without blemish, as an offering. Both sons brought their offerings with reverence, presenting them as gifts to the Creator. They stood side by side, two brothers united in purpose yet distinct in their approaches. But in a moment that would forever change their lives, God looked with favor upon Abel's offering and did not accept Cain's with the same regard. The scriptures do not explain why God preferred Abel's gift over Cain's, leaving a mystery that would resonate through generations. Perhaps it was the spirit in which Abel approached his offering, a humble heart and a willingness to give his best. Cain's disappointment was immediate, a deep wound to his pride and sense of worth. He could not understand why God had favored Abel's gift, and the rejection began to fester within him. The pain of being overlooked grew into a bitter jealousy, a darkness that settled into his soul, turning his thoughts against his brother. Seeing the turmoil within Cain, God spoke to him with words of caution and compassion, offering guidance before sin could take hold. "Why are you angry, and why is your face downcast?" God asked. "If you do well, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." These words carried both an invitation to repentance and a warning of the dangers that lay ahead. God was telling Cain that he held power over his choices, that he could turn away from bitterness and seek righteousness. Yet Cain's heart had already hardened, consumed by jealousy and pride. He could not see beyond his anger, and he dismissed the counsel of the Lord, allowing his resentment to deepen. Cain's rejection became an obsession, his brother's favor a constant reminder of his own perceived inadequacy. Instead of seeking understanding or humility, Cain allowed the bitterness to shape his actions. The seeds of envy took root, and a dark plan began to form in his heart. His pride, wounded and unchecked, led him down a path from which he could not return. Blinded by jealousy and consumed by rage, Cain could no longer bear to see Abel honored by God. In his mind, his brother had become more than just a sibling. Abel was a rival, someone who stood between him and God's favor. The anger that Cain harbored grew each day, poisoning his thoughts, turning his heart cold. The wound of rejection festered, transforming him from a brother to an enemy, and soon he could think of only one way to rid himself of the reminder of his shame. One day, Cain approached Abel and suggested they go together into the fields. His voice carried a semblance of brotherly affection, yet underneath lay a sinister intent. Abel, whose heart was pure and unsuspecting, agreed without hesitation, following Cain to the far reaches of the land, away from the eyes of their parents and the watchful presence of God. Abel trusted Cain completely, never suspecting the malice that lay hidden beneath his brother's words. But in the solitude of the open fields, Cain's rage erupted. In an act of violence that shattered the bond of family and humanity, he struck Abel down, taking his life in a fit of wrath and jealousy. Abel's blood spilled upon the earth, and in that moment, the ground bore witness to the first murder, a dark stain upon the world that would echo through generations. The life that God had created and cherished was taken by human hands, the innocence of humanity forever marred by Cain's act. The earth, still young and innocent, seemed to cry out in sorrow, and the Lord, who sees all, came to Cain with a question that was both simple and profound. "Where is your brother Abel?" God asked, giving Cain an opportunity to confess, to confront his guilt and seek forgiveness. But Cain, defiant and evasive, responded with a cold indifference. "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" His words revealed a heart hardened by sin, unwilling to take responsibility, even in the face of divine judgment. God's response was filled with sorrow and justice. "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." In that moment, the full weight of Cain's actions was revealed. Abel's blood, spilled without cause, had become a voice for justice, crying out to God for retribution. Cain's sin was laid bare, and he could no longer hide from the consequences of his jealousy and pride. In response to this grievous sin, God pronounced a severe judgment upon Cain. The earth, which had once been his livelihood, would now turn against him, refusing to yield crops or sustain him. The ground that had received his brother's blood would now reject him, reflecting the brokenness of his soul. "When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth," the Lord declared, condemning Cain to a life of endless wandering. Cain, hearing these words, was overwhelmed by despair. He cried out, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me away from the face of the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and anyone who finds me will kill me." Cain's plea revealed a soul tormented by the realization of his separation from both God and humanity. His punishment was not only physical, but spiritual, a severing of his connection to both the earth and the divine. In an act of mercy, God placed a mark upon Cain, a mysterious sign that would protect him from those who might seek vengeance. "If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold," God declared, ensuring that while Cain would live as an exile, he would not face death at the hands of another. This mark became a shield, a sign of both divine protection and divine judgment, reminding him and all who encountered him of the gravity of his crime. Thus, Cain was cast out, bearing the mark of his sin and the consequences of his actions. The mark became a constant reminder of his separation from God, a symbol of both mercy and punishment. Cain's life would be one of isolation, a journey with no rest, a wandering that mirrored the turmoil within his soul. Forever bound by his choices, he would roam the earth as a fugitive, marked and burdened by the weight of his transgressions. Banished from the presence of the Lord and separated from the land he once cultivated, Cain wandered eastward and arrived in a place called Nod. The name Nod itself means wandering, a land as restless and barren as Cain's own soul. Here, in this desolate land, far from family and all he had once known, Cain began his new life as an exile, condemned to wander. The mark upon him was both a constant reminder of his crime and a protection from vengeance, isolating him from human connection, yet preserving him from harm. Despite his curse, Cain sought some semblance of stability. Perhaps he hoped to escape the curse by building a new life, or maybe he simply wished to forget his past by creating something in the present. Over time, Cain found a wife, and together, they bore a son whom they named Enoch. In an attempt to leave a legacy, Cain built a city and named it after his son. This act of creating a city was a paradox for a man cursed to wander, as it was a symbol of permanence in a life marked by transience. Yet even in Nod, where he built walls and gathered people around him, Cain's soul remained adrift. The restlessness within him could not be silenced by the city's walls or the comforts of family. Some scholars suggest that even as he settled, Cain was never truly at peace, that his spirit remained unanchored, forever burdened by the mark upon him. Though he may have built a city and raised a family, his heart could never escape the consequence of his actions or the separation from God. The city Cain built stood as a strange monument, a place born from a man cursed to wander. And yet it was a fleeting comfort. His family and his city could not erase the burden he carried. In the end, the mark upon him was not just a physical sign, but a reminder that his life was forever altered by the choices he had made. The city he built may have been an attempt to find redemption, yet it remained tainted by the curse that defined his existence. In the barren land of Nod, Cain's life became a testament to the isolation and restlessness that follow a soul marked by sin. His city was his refuge, yet it could not offer him solace, for his soul remained eternally exiled from peace. The mark on Cain was a protection that shielded him from revenge, ensuring that no one would harm him in vengeance for Abel. Over the centuries, readers and scholars have debated the nature of this mark. Some believe that it granted Cain a form of immortality, forcing him to live as an eternal wanderer, ageless yet carrying the weight of his guilt. The Bible does not clarify Cain's fate beyond his exile, leaving open the possibility that his wandering was not only geographical, but also temporal. If Cain's life extended beyond the normal span, he would have become a mysterious figure. Watching the world change, witnessing the rise of civilizations and the passage of generations. The idea of an eternally wandering Cain suggests a life of endless learning yet perpetual loneliness, an existence where death would be a mercy denied. Legends arose that Cain became a ghostly figure, a drifter among humankind, unable to find peace or rest. Some even speculate that he gained a deeper understanding of human nature, learning and observing but never truly engaging, forever marked as an outsider. Others imagine that Cain may have used his knowledge and experience to influence events in secrecy. Over the ages, perhaps he became a hidden force, shaping history from behind the scenes. This idea paints him as a complex figure, both cursed and powerful, a man who, though marked by sin, possessed insights beyond the reach of ordinary mortals. Some legends even suggest that Cain became something almost supernatural, a haunting presence, drifting from place to place, carrying the weight of his punishment through the ages. These theories present Cain as a tragic figure, condemned to carry his guilt alone, his life a perpetual reminder of the consequences of unchecked sin. As generations passed, people came to see Cain as a symbol of both divine justice and mercy, a soul given life yet denied the release of death. The legend of Cain's immortality raises profound questions about sin, punishment, and redemption. Could there be a greater punishment than a life that endures without end, separated from both God and humanity? In this sense, Cain's endless wandering is both a curse and a lesson, an eternal testament to the weight of his actions and the choices that defined him. As humankind multiplied upon the earth, wickedness grew rampant, filling creation with corruption and violence. God, grieved by the state of the world, decided to cleanse the earth through a great flood, sparing only Noah, his family, and the animals upon the ark. This flood was a divine reset, a judgment meant to wash away the evils that had come to define humanity. Many believe that this flood marked the end of Cain's story, as he would have perished alongside the rest of the wicked if he were still alive at the time. However, those who argue that Cain's mark granted him a form of immortality believe that it may have shielded him even from the flood's destruction. This theory suggests that Cain survived the flood, condemned to continue his wandering in a world cleansed of all he had known. In this scenario, he would have drifted into a new world, a stranger to Noah's descendants, his past forgotten yet his curse unchanged. Cain's mark, in this view, was a protection so profound that it preserved him through catastrophe, allowing him to endure even as the world around him was renewed. Other ancient texts outside the Bible provide alternate endings to Cain's life. In the Book of Jasher, a Jewish text that offers supplementary narratives, Cain is said to have met his end at the hands of Lamech, a blind descendant who mistakenly killed him in a hunting accident. Another apocryphal text, the Book of Jubilees, tells of Cain perishing when his own house collapsed upon him, his death attributed to the same element, a stone, that he had used to kill Abel. This account suggests a poetic justice where Cain's life ended in a way that mirrored his original sin. Yet, despite these alternate endings, the question of Cain's ultimate fate remains a mystery. Was he truly laid to rest, or does he still wander the earth as a symbol of divine justice and mercy? His story leaves us with unresolved questions about the nature of repentance and redemption, the consequences of sin, and the complexities of human choice. Cain's life, shrouded in mystery and marked by tragedy, invites us to reflect upon the paths we choose and the marks we bear. His journey is a story of separation from family, from the land, and from God, a story that underscores the weight of our decisions and the profound consequences they carry. Whether his life ended with the flood or continues through the ages, Cain stands as a timeless figure, a soul both punished and protected, whose legacy is a sobering reminder of the impact of sin and the search for redemption. The story of Cain is one of humanity's oldest and most haunting tales, a reminder of the profound impact of our choices and the weight of the marks we carry. In Cain, we see both the depth of human jealousy and the reach of divine mercy, a man cursed yet preserved, wandering through time as a symbol of the struggle between sin and redemption. Whether his journey ended long ago or continues unseen, Cain's life calls us to reflect on our own actions, our own struggles with forgiveness, and our own search for peace. As we journey through these ancient stories, we uncover timeless truths that speak to the human heart, inviting us to confront our own lives with honesty and humility. Cain's story is just the beginning, a doorway into the mysteries and lessons found within the Bible's pages. There are countless stories still to explore, tales of courage, betrayal, love, and redemption. If you found meaning here, don't miss out on what's next. Subscribe to our channel, stay connected, and join us as we continue to uncover the wisdom of the Bible, one story at a time. Together, let's seek understanding, grow in faith, and look forward to the journey ahead.